The K450 and the Helium hoses are both pressurized. When fitting these, be aware and follow any safety advice your institute provides for dealing with pressurized vessels. Try not to overly bend or twist the Helium hoses, and do not allow damage to occur to the braid on the outside of the hoses. The K450 has one Helium supply outlet and one Helium return inlet. The ends are color-coded to match the provided hoses. The supply line is red, the return line is green. Before connecting the hoses, check the Helium pressure reported on the K450. Although it's not running, the pressure should read approximately 16.5 bar or 240 psi. If the pressure reads less than 15.5 bar or 220 psi, contact our support team for advice. Remove the dust caps, check the surfaces of the couplings are clean, and that the sealing O-ring is in place. To prevent leakage of the Helium from the couplings, be sure to keep the hoses straight. If the Helium does leak during this process, you can always top up the system. Connect the coupling halves by hand until you feel resistance. Using the spanners provided, fit one to the middle nut so that the arm sits horizontally. Fit the other spanner to the swivel nut so that the arm sits vertically. Make sure the Helium hose is relatively straight, and then rotate the spanner closest to the K450 whilst holding the other spanner still to tighten the coupling. Tighten the fittings until a good resistance is felt. A helpful indication is that approximately 12 millimeters of thread on the male fitting can be seen when the coupling is properly tightened. And now loosen the connection by 1/4. This will ensure that the sealing O-ring is not over-compressed, increasing the service life of the fittings and preventing Helium leakage from a worn-down fitting. Repeat these steps for each end of both Helium lines. Now that the Helium hoses are connected, check the pressure of the K450 again. Does it still read approximately 16.5 bar or 240 psi? If the pressure's dropped to less than 15.5 bar or 220 psi, you will need to top the system up with more Helium. More information about that process can be found in the Cobra manual. Under normal operating conditions, the K450 should maintain 21.5 bar with oscillations of around half a bar. It's good practice to monitor the K450 Helium pressure intermittently, especially after disconnecting and reconnecting the hoses, as gas can be lost during this process. Finally, we need to connect the power cable from the cold head 1 port at the rear of the K450 to the Cobra refrigerator. This will provide power to the stepper motor. Connect the serial cable from the serial port on the back of the K450 to the aux port on the controller. This will allow the controller and K450 to communicate.